what is really creating the magic where people go like, I love when that guitar comes in, you know, or I love this, I love that, I love the vocal, you know, blah, blah, blah. So part of that process for me is the EQ, but that may change, you know, during the course of the song. So there's two things that I do. One I've been doing forever is riding in different places in the song, riding the thing up. So most obviously is when a chorus comes in or something like that. I'll give it an extra kick.
Will you give it just like you ride the overheads, or you're saying that you ride everything up a little bit? Will you ever ride the master fader up?
I do ride the master fader sometimes, but I prefer not to do that because there's other things in the mix that I might not want to have come in louder. So the ones I'm more apt to do it with are rhythm guitars and kick drums and featured instruments. You know, like if there's a big piano thing that's supposed to be happening, I'll bring that up, but I won't leave it up. You know, and it's not up like 10 dB. You know, it's just a sudden boom and then, you know, back down a little bit. And but another thing I'll do sometimes depends on which works better for me. And it's something that used to be harder to do before Pro Tools, but in Pro Tools I'll change the EQ of it for the hit, and then go back to the other EQ. So I'm not bringing up the whole instrument. I'm just bringing up maybe the mid range.
Yeah,
you know, just hit it so you really
just on the impacts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole in the high end isn't changing, but suddenly the guitar has a little more in the forefront. You know, just for the hit, and then slide it back. And also in different parts of the song, I'll ride things up and down.
I'd like to take a second to talk to you about this channel. This is actually Rick Beato 2. I've had it since the beginning of my main channel, and many of you are not subscribed. As a matter of fact, 87% of the people that watch this channel regularly are not subscribed. So I encourage you to hit the subscribe button on this channel and on my main channel. This will help me get even more of my dream guests and help continue to grow both channels. Thank you.
How do you decide where the level, when you have an intense vocal like that, do you want it to be, you don't want to be too high above the guitars, right? You want it to be, you have to get how do you know where the right spot is?
Well, in that one, that's one of the most interesting lyrics I've ever heard in a chorus.
A denial.
I mean, the whole thing, and it ends with the denial.
The whole,
and my libido, and you know, blah, blah, blah.
Were you thinking like, wow, this is really creative?
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. The whole album is incredible. And but to get back to your question, if I recall correctly, my intention there was to have you. I wanted you to emotionally feel that he was just kind of lost in the milieu of all this noise and just screaming through it and all this sort of thing. But so obviously I didn't want to override the guitars and drums and bass. But what I did is I wanted to make sure you could hear all that crazy lyric.
Yes.
I wanted to make sure you didn't miss what he was saying.
Yeah.
So you weren't just hearing, you know? And so that was kind of the tipping point there, is to get it either with level or EQ to the point where you could understand the lyric, you know? And I, to that end, I have a lot of things I listen, not just for this reason, but I spend a lot of time listening on different speakers.
Okay, so
at different levels.
I had talked to somebody that worked with you. I can't remember where it was. This was years ago, and they said that you listen so quietly. Yes. They were saying, Andy listens so quietly that I'm like, are the speakers on? Can you hear that? No, is that?
That's true.
Okay, so when you're listening that quietly, are you trying to find that intensity even at the quietest level?
Yes. What I'm trying to do is I have to start by saying I also, at the beginning of the mix, listen really loud to the point where I'll say, look, anybody in the room, you don't need to stay in the room right now, you know.
Because you want to make sure it holds together loud
yes,
and has the power.
I want to make sure it's got the power coming at me. And I listen on different speakers, not, 10 different speaker things, but the two that I listen to mostly, I use the Genelec 1031s, I guess, and then NS10s.
Yep.
And then most of the studios have some kind of set of big speakers, and I'll listen on them. Not so much critically for the mix, but to make sure that it feels good if it's being played on that kind of a system. I occasionally will spend a little bit of time listening on headphones.
Okay.
Not a lot. It's not something I spend a lot of time doing. But now getting back to specifically what you were saying is, so I do listen loud. I try not to listen loud any longer than I have to. Mm-hmm. But I listen at normal level. But I also spend a lot of time listening, especially when I'm not so much when I'm fine tuning the mix, but when I'm critically listening to the fine tuning that I've done. I'll listen at a lot of different levels, but I do spend a lot of time listening very, very, very quietly because I want to know, the analogy I always use is I want to know that not only is my music going to sound good, on big speakers and little speakers and loudspeakers, but even on a blaster that gets tipped over in the sand at the beach. Mm-hmm. I want to know that if you're standing there listening to it, you hear all the important parts, everything that I want you to hear, like I said, whoever has center stage, I want to make sure that comes through. So listening super quietly helps to do that because there's always a certain amount of ambient noise in the room. So this way, there's a lot of random, especially in New York. It's one of the things I like about this studio is it's kind of isolated. There's not a whole lot. Every now and then a motorcycle will go by, and I don't know if you noticed, but there's a railroad train up there. So sometimes a train will go by. But generally speaking, it's pretty peaceful around here. But anyway, I want to bury it in whatever ambient noise there is, an air conditioner or whatever, and again know that I can really say, yeah, that mix rocks. It's really got all the moxie that I wanted it to have. So that's part of the reason I do that.